All right, thanks. I appreciate both of you guys doing this.
What up,
Sure.
Rick?
Nice to meet you.
Shay, let me start with you. Doing a show like this is a little bit of a new experience. And I'm wondering when you first signed that deal, obviously you're thinking to yourself, man, this is going to be the hard thing to do. This is the aspect of the process that's going to be the toughest. How did that compare to your experience once the show was over?
I think that the toughest part for me ended up being just as you mentioned, this is the first time I've done it. So each time you walk into a room or sit down for a meeting, like you've not done it before, and you don't know what to expect. And that part was nerve-wracking to me more than the writing. I was not super worried about the writing because we had Mike and Peter and Lisa and Sylvia. Like I had protection around me, and I wasn't worried about the directing because we had four incredible directors. I had that protection. It's like at every position, Mike and his team had put a very talented person there in charge. So all that I had to do was be like, what, like with this set, Ian, what do I do? Or with casting Carlo, what do I do? Or with costumes, Unshin, what do I do? Like that part I felt like protected, but just not knowing what the next thing was going to be. The scope was always bigger than I thought it was. I remember when I walked on the set for the first time and on like one of the stages, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like this one is ours. Like we're going to be on this side of the building. And they're like, no, we have the whole thing. We have all the stages, all of the offices, and this is one piece of it. And I was like, oh my, there were 30 people in there, and I'm like, oh, this is everybody. And they're like, no, this is 1/7 of the people. There's 200 people here. Oh my God. Like that part was to me very like that was what would keep me up at night. I don't want to screw that part up. But yeah, that's for me, that was really what stuck out the most.
Mike, you're there to be the voice of, look, I've done this before. I've been on a successful show. What was that conversation like? Do you sit with Shea and say, look, this is what they haven't told you that you really got to watch out for? What's your role there?
Yeah, there's some of that. I mean, because Shay had never written anything for TV before, it was like I felt like my role to some degree was to sort of like be a booster rocket in every phase of the show. Like, all right, here's the way the writing works. I'll be here with you for a chunk of time, and I'll like show you how to like run a room, and then like a booster rocket. Once Shay's like a rocket. He's the space shuttle, and I'm the booster rocket. So once he's got the hang of it, which he gets pretty quickly, then the booster rocket kind of falls away and lets the ship keep going. And it was like that in for the writing, for the being on set, for like I would try to kind of like be around as much as I could when a new phase of the production was up and running to say like here's the way this works, answer any questions he has. It's not just me, it's Morgan Sackett, our producing partner, and David Miner, my manager and producer. Like there's a bunch of people who kind of when we're working with someone who's never done it before, we're just like around to like demonstrate and show and like put stuff into perspective and answer questions. And then eventually, if the person is talented and good, as Shay is, they figure it out pretty quickly, and then they're off and running and doing it themselves. Because that's the goal. Like this is Shay's show, it's Shay's life, it's his project. Like I don't want to be around like making decisions any longer than I have to. Shay should be the one who gets to shape the show and form the show in the way that I got to in other shows in my life.
Shay, that's having talked to other people in this situation. Sometimes the biggest challenge is the ego aspect of it. There's this combination of you want to be able to do everything because this is your vision, but also having the wisdom to realize I don't know everything, and I need to learn this. Can you talk a little bit about that process, because it sounds like you did a good job of navigating it, but it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I think let me think of here's how I would explain it. I'm going to tell the basketball story because basketball, I think, works for every single situation. In 2005, there's a player on the Spurs named Robert Horry who came and he played for a few seasons with the Spurs, right? And they won the championship in 2005. And after you win a championship, they make a celebratory like championship DVD that shows you what the year was like with a team. And I remember watching that DVD and watching an interview with Robert Horry, and they're talking about what was it like to be on the Spurs, what's it like to be in that huddle, and blah blah blah. And he was explaining when he first got to San Antonio, he was at practice, and he watched Greg Popovich, coach of the Spurs, dig up Tim Duncan in a practice for like not getting after a loose ball or something like that. And he said, I knew when I watched the main guy get yelled at by the coach, there's nothing I could say or do. Like I have to do it too. You know what I mean? And a version of a version of that happened when we were in the room. I'm in the room with Mike Schur, who I have told him this before. I'll continue to say I think he's the greatest comedy showrunner of the past 25 years or whatever. Like he's the guy. He's the best. And I'm watching Mike in the room field ideas from other writers, and he'll pitch a thing, and it won't, like somebody else will pitch something else, and he'll go, "That's better. Let's do that." If the main guy is doing that, then it becomes very easy for me to be like, oh, cool. It's okay to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody help me. If I can watch Mike go, oh, that idea is better than this idea. If I was in Mike's position, I'll be like, you all go to hell. Do what I say. I'm the guy. You know what I mean? Watching Mike do that, it becomes much easier to just go, okay, cool. Somebody help me, please. You know what I mean?
Well, Mike, as Shea's talking about that, strikes me that, you have that perspective, obviously being on a really, running a really successful, iconic shows. But, you've been part of shows that I thought were really good. Abby's, which I thought was a great show.
Oh, thank you.
Didn't quite, catch the audience the same way. So you have a little perspective on, look, this isn't always going to be a huge hit. You have to do the best you can and just let the audience figure it out.
Well, first of all, both of you go to hell. I'll start with that. Here's the conclusion I've come to, for better or worse. The way that the world of TV works now, more than ever, it's always been like this a little bit, but now quadruply so. Predicting success is impossible. Like, you just don't know. There's a billion shows. There's 500 streamers and 700 media outlets and apps and whatever. And so the idea of saying like this is going to succeed is absurd. Good ideas fail all the time. Bad ideas succeed sometimes. So the only thing you can do is like take an idea you think is a good idea, put a lot of time and care and attention and love into it, make it as good as you can, and put it out into the world and see if it connects with people. Like, that's, again, I'm not naive. That's always been true. It's just that in the past, your chance for success, if you crafted something lovingly and caring with great care, your chance for success, I think, was a little higher just because there were fewer options. Now there's 10 million options. There are shows that are in season 4 that I've never heard of. I work in the TV industry. Like, that shouldn't be the case. I'm like, what the hell is this show? Season 4? Like, what's happening? So, we control one aspect of this process, making the thing. We make it as well as we possibly can. We like lovingly hone it and polish it and craft it to the best of our ability. After that, we are not in control anymore, except to the extent that we can talk to people like you and hope that people read interviews or like see Shea's tweets. So my entire sense of self-worth as a writer is now wrapped up in how I evaluate the quality of the things that I work on. And in that sense, I'm very, very happy with the way that Primo turned out, and I have high self-esteem for how Primo turned out. And after that, who knows what happens? But I think Shea had a great idea. I think the writing staff and the production staff did a great job, and I think the show's really good. So that's all you can hope for.
Well, Shea, let me wrap it up that way then. When you're involved in the show day by day, it's just coming at you like a fire hose. It's easy to sort of lose perspective of what it's going to look like at the end sometimes. And when you sat down and you watched those finished episodes, you watched that season, what was your what was your reaction? What was your takeaway? Or a surprise you just went, oh, wow, that really worked out well?
I was so happy with it when I sat down and watched it. I waited a few weeks after we had finished production. I waited until they did all the color correcting and sound mixing, and then I just sat by myself alone, completely alone, turned my phone off, and just watched all 8 episodes. I was like, please, God, don't let this be bad. But when you're working on it, it seems like in your head, it's great. It's going great. Everyone's doing a great job. And then you step away from it. Because I've had like projects I've written where when I'm in it, I'm like, this is the best thing anybody's ever written. And then I read it 2 weeks later and I'm like, what was I thinking? This is awful. And so sitting there watching all of the episodes afterward, I was so just overwhelmingly proud because it turned out exactly like what I was hoping it would be, which is Parks and Rec, but it's a family. And that's what I was like aspiring to. And I did like Parks and Rec is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. To say you want to be that, a version of that is like an overwhelming thing. But then you just like get out of the way and let the people do the things, and it turned out so good. I couldn't love it more. If we never got to make another episode of it, I would be heartbroken, but also like insanely proud because it's just those 8 episodes to me are I love them so much.
Well, congratulations to both of you on the show, and I still have about 50 questions I didn't ask. So, but hopefully season 2. So I appreciate your time and good
Oh,
luck with it.
please. Come on, Rick. Come back, Rick.
I'm working on it. Thanks. Take care, guys.
All right. Bye bye.